Welcome to this session. Marine expert Eimear Manning is going to do a deep dive into one of the most misunderstood creatures on the planet, sharks. Let's learn how to take real action to protect ocean life.
Hello and welcome to the Sharks vs. Plastic workshop. I'm Eimear Manning and I'm here to talk to you today about these incredible animals that are sharks and about plastic and how our habits as humans are actually harming sharks. Now, a lot of people know that certain species of sharks are apex predators. Some of you may even have a fear of sharks. But realistically, sharks have a lot more to be scared of when it comes to humans than we do of them. So let's dive right into it. And first and foremost, who am I and why am I eligible to give you a talk on sharks? So firstly, I have gone through an intensive college degree. I've gone through a bachelor's and a master's degree, so I've graduated with my master's in marine sustainability, where I dissected many sharks and worked with them as part of my thesis. And I also have my scuba diver's license. Additionally, this has taken me to many places, so in the summertime I like to go to Miami in Florida in the USA, and I will live aboard the RV Garvin. RV stands for Research Vessel Garvin. And I'll be with a wonderful crew of people here, which I'm going to show you in the next slide. But essentially what we do is we catch and tag and release sharks, and we get data from those sharks as well that we can give to college students who are looking to study sharks, and they use the data that we collect in their own theses, which is pretty cool. It's also led me to some really cool jobs. So you can just about see a pair of hands here. Those are my hands, and I have a really long pole, and at the end of the pole you can see a piece of squid. And these are two wonderful blacktip reef sharks that are circling those squid. This is from my time when I used to work in sea life in Bray. And we would look after all of our sharks and stingrays there. So here is the wonderful field school crew out in Miami. So you can see in this first photo here, they are releasing a juvenile, so a small or a young shark. In this one, we have an adult nurse shark, and this one is really huge. You can see we have a measuring tape going across from one fin around the back to the other. We measure every shark to make sure that they are growing at a healthy rate. If they're growing too small or too fast, that might indicate that there's something wrong with the water. Maybe there are chemicals in the water or too much pollution. But one of the things that we love to measure them for, particularly with females, is we love to see if we catch a female a few years later, is she pregnant? It can be really cool. You can tell that by how big her stomach/back are, which is pretty cool. A little media trick for you. This here is a black nose shark, and it looks quite large and ferocious in this image. This shark is this shark. So that's a bit of a media thing that they can do. If they just zoom in on the face of the shark, you have no reference for how big or how small anything is. So the shark can look massive. In reality, the shark's about the same size as your arm, so it's quite small. But just to point out that we do catch the sharks, but every shark that we work up, we release, and we release them alive. We work them up as fast as humanly possible to make sure that they are not stressed out of water. And we actually assess the sharks after letting them go to make sure that they are swimming off well. If they're not swimming off well, we will actually physically get into the water with the shark and help them swim off and help them calm down so that they're able to go off better. We take a lot of care of the sharks here. But we also work with stingrays. So stingrays and sharks are actually cousins. They are related to one another. So we do work up stingrays as well, and we do tag them and release them as well. So let's dive right into the actual meat of this workshop. The first one is, what are sharks? So here's a question for you. Are sharks fish? Yes or no? So I'm going to put up a countdown timer on the screen for you right here, and all I want you to do is have 10 seconds in your class. Feel free to just call out to your teacher, or teacher, if you want to do a show of hands for yes and a show of hands for no, that's up to you. But you have 10 seconds to guess, are sharks fish? Here we go. Yes! So sharks are more closely related to the common goldfish than they are to dolphins and whales. So even though a shark resembles a dolphin in a lot of ways, and dolphin fins coming out of the water can sometimes be mistaken for shark fins coming out of the water, they do have a lot of similarities, but they are completely different genres of species. You have your dolphin and whales, which are mammals, and you have your sharks and goldfish, which are fish. So there are some differences, though, between sharks and fish. And I will also say the main differences between between fish and mammals are mammals have lungs. That's why dolphins and whales need to use their blowhole to be able to take air in and to blow it back out. So they do have lungs. But sharks and fish have gills instead. There is no like pocket of air inside their body. The gills are there to extract oxygen from the water and carry it around the blood. And the other thing is that mammals feed their babies milk. So this is totally true. Both dolphins and whales feed their young milk underwater. It's so cool. But they are able to do that. Sharks have absolutely no way to produce milk, so they are not mammals. And mammals usually have a uterus in the females, so they normally carry their young and then give live birth to them. Some sharks do have this capability of giving live birth, and they do have a uterus. In fact, some sharks actually have 2 uteri, but some sharks do something totally different that's not live birth, and we will come to that a little bit later in the workshop. So that's the difference between sharks and mammals, but what are the differences between sharks and regular fish that you might be able to buy at like a pet store? The first thing is their bones. Sharks have absolutely no bones. They do have a skeleton, but their skeleton is made of cartilage instead of bone. This means that they're much more flexible. So you have 3 places, well, you have more than 3 places, but you have 3 main places in your body where you have cartilage. The first is the tip of your nose, which is why your nose is so wiggly and you can bend it up and you can squish it down. The second is your ears, which is why you're able to flatten your ears and pin them back to your head and kind of pull them and twist them around. And the third is your sternum, so that part in between and in the center of your chest, that also has cartilage the whole way through it as well. And then the other thing that's different between sharks and fish are scales. Sharks don't have scales. They have skin, but their skin is really, really rough. In fact, their skin is kind of built up of these tiny little teeth that overlap each other. It looks similar to scales, but they're not made of the same thing. It is considered skin. So, quick fire round. My favorite shark facts. So I want to get you to understand sharks. So all I'm going to do in this round is just throw some lovely quick fire facts at you that I think are interesting. And then we're going to move on to the plastics section. So here we go, my favorite shark facts. Number 1, sharks come in all shapes and sizes. The top image there is a whale shark, which is the largest fish on the planet. Not the largest ocean creature, because that's a blue whale, but remember, blue whales are mammals. This is the largest fish, the whale shark. Confusing name, I know. And there's a human for size reference. You can just see the scuba diver there. It's probably about as tall as its tail. So that's it's a pretty big fish. But then you have, on the totally other end of the spectrum, a dwarf lantern shark. That is an adult, the one that's in this photo right now, and it's not even as big as a human hand. So they're really, really tiny. Ireland is home to 33 species of shark, so 33 different individual kinds of shark. So the most common one that people know about in Ireland is the basking shark. We get them a lot off the Cork and Kerry coast. You can also get them up in Galway and Donegal and over in Dublin. But we do have way more than just the basking shark. So we have the likes of the blue shark, the poor beagle, which is essentially, it looks like a small great white, but it's not a great white. It's much smaller than that. We have a deep sea shark, a really rare deep sea shark called the 6-gill shark. Most sharks have 5 gills, whereas this one has 6, which is why it's called that. And in fact, the largest shark ever caught in European waters was caught by a woman off the coast of County Mayo, and she caught a 6-gill shark. And we also have one of the rarest species of shark in the world. This looks like a ray, but it's not a ray. This is a shark, and it's called an angel shark. And in Ireland, the angel sharks actually are nearly extinct because we fished them so much in the 1930s through 60s that we had to then put in protection in place on the angel shark. But we still do have a few. Sharks can sense electricity with their faces. So if you look really, really closely at this picture, all around the shark's nose, there are these teeny tiny little pores. They look kind of like blackheads. Those pores are filled with a jelly that is able to sense electricity. And this is why it comes in so handy for the hammerhead sharks. Hammerhead sharks tend to spend a lot of their time feeding near the sea floor. And they'll use their big cephalofoil, that big hammerhead, and they'll swim around and basically use it kind of like a metal detector. And they'll be searching for the electricity given off by fish's heartbeats under the sand. That's how sensitive their electricity sense is. And then when the hammerhead finds, say, a stingray or a fish or a flounder that's buried into the sand, all it has to do is use its cephalofoil to pin the fish down and eat it. Really, really clever. But yes, sharks can sense electricity with their faces. They can also, it's that sensitive, they can sense your heartbeat too. Sharks sleep by switching off one half of their brain at a time. Dolphins do this as well, but essentially they can turn off and kind of put into rest mode one side of their brain and leave the other side on. This is so that they can constantly have a look for both prey and predators. And then a few hours later, when that half is rested, they'll flip over and they'll do the same thing on the other half. This is what I was talking about earlier on, how some sharks give birth to live species, but some sharks lay eggs like chickens. Their eggs don't look like chicken eggs though, they look totally different, but you can see that they do have a yolk, and it's a little yellow yolk, just like a chicken egg, and a little cord that attaches the baby shark to the egg. And that baby will feed off that yolk until it's about the same size as the egg itself, and that's when it's ready to hatch. And then the shark will hatch. It'll just break out of that egg. It kind of feels like seaweed. It kind of looks like seaweed too, but that's a camouflage technique to help them blend in so that no predators will eat the eggs. But yeah, some baby sharks come from eggs, and you find these washed up on the shores in Ireland a lot. They're called mermaids' purses. And if you find a mermaid's purse, you should do what this person's doing, hold it up to the light so it turns see-through. If you see a baby shark or a baby stingray inside, put the egg back in the ocean and let it float away, and you could have saved the life of a baby shark or stingray, which is pretty cool. But if it's empty, you can keep it and as a little souvenir and teach other people about shark eggs. So, this is my favourite fact. Some sharks can glow in the dark. So there are some sharks that we have discovered only recently with this ability. Unfortunately, you cannot see the sharks glowing with the naked eye. There was a man who was down scuba diving and he had a really fancy camera out to film bioluminescence, or this kind of internal glowing of coral. And coral is an animal, but it doesn't move. It stays completely still. And off in the corner of his camera, he saw movement that was glowing. And he was like, well, that wasn't a coral moving. What was that? And he started moving his camera around and trying to find what it was that was glowing. And this is what he found. He found the first ever glowing shark. So a lot of research has been done into this since he found that glowing shark. And what we've come up with is 2 reasons why this could be possible. The first is that because these sharks are mainly nocturnal, it could be really, really hard for them to find mates. So we think that maybe the glow is there to attract mates and other sharks can see the glow. or it's used to attract prey. So it kind of gives off this nice glow, and little fish are like, ooh, I wonder what that is, and they start moving closer, and then the shark can have its choice of prey that way. But either way, it's an amazing fact, and I love it. Sharks can smell a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's true, but what's not obviously mentioned enough is that they don't care. So this has been tested time and time again to see if sharks can sense blood, and yes, they can. But the thing that is not really mentioned is that sharks genuinely don't like this, or not that they don't like, but they don't care about the smell of human blood. Human blood is not what they are after. They are after the blood of large fish and seals, and there is a different chemical composition between our blood and the fish and the seals that they eat. Most sharks have absolutely no idea what human blood even is. So when they smell it, they don't associate it with blood because it's not the same. It doesn't smell like their food. We aren't their food. What is their food, however, for a lot of cases is large fish, seals, and turtles. And where it gets unfortunate when people saying that sharks are super aggressive towards people, they're not. Sharks are not aggressive. But when you have somebody who is a surfer or a scuba diver and they look thick and bulky, and especially when surfers stick their arms and legs out, you can see the resemblance between the seal and the turtle. For a shark, it's really, really hard to tell the difference, and great whites do not have a great sense of vision either. They rely on those ampullae, those electro senses, much more than they do their eyes. So for a shark, they're not trying to eat humans. We're not their main food. But unfortunately, from time to time, we get mistaken as their main food. They're not aggressive species. So, to prove to you that sharks aren't aggressive, I have a bit of a game for you. I have a bunch of different ways on the screen here that people die. And I want you to guess, where does the shark fit in? The shark is up here. Where does the shark fit into all of these numbers? So I'm going to go through these numbers really quickly. 6,000 people die a year from tripping. 3,000 people die a year from choking on their food. 2,500 people a year die from being left-handed. And that is from using tools that were made for right-handed people, and a left-handed person tries to use it, and it doesn't go so well, obviously. 900 people a year die from suffocating in their bed. 150 people a year die from coconuts falling from trees and hitting them on the head and breaking their skull. 43 people a year die from taking selfies and not looking where they're standing. 24 people a year die from champagne corks flying into them. 20 people a year die from just cows, just being around cows. And 10 people die a year from their neckties being too tight. So there are some unusual statistics for you. These are global statistics. But now I want you to think about where the shark comes in. So do you think that the shark should be in between here? Do you think it should be in between here? Or where should the shark go? So I'm going to give you a moment just to have a think about it. So I'm going to stay quiet, and we're going to give you another 10 seconds or so. And I want you all to discuss with your neighbour nearby, or just call out to your teacher. Where do you think the shark could come? Between the champagne bottle and the cow? Whatever you think. Alright, here we go. 10 seconds. Okay, have you all made your guesses? Alright, so the answer is 8. The sharks come at the bottom. More people die a year of their neckties being too tight than of sharks. And I'm going to say something controversial here, or maybe controversial. Most people don't actually die during the shark attack. So it's actually not the shark attack that killed the person. It's that the person is experiencing so much blood loss and they can't get to the hospital on time to stop the blood loss is what kills them. So This number is disputed by different people for different reasons, but sharks are the primary cause of 8 deaths per year globally. That's it. It's not a high number. So once again, sharks are not aggressive, but don't do stupid things. So don't do things like this. This is a man who saw a giant tiger shark eating a whale carcass and decided to jump on top of the whale carcass that the shark is eating to get a photograph. So if that man puts his hand in the wrong place at the wrong time, it could be by hand. That is 100% not the shark's fault. That is that man's fault. The other one is, if you're going to catch a shark, know how to hold a shark. So remember I said sharks' skeletons are made of cartilage, so they're super, super flexible. If this shark wanted to, it could bite its own tail. So if that person thinks that their hands are going to be free, or their arms or wrists are going to be free from a shark bite, if that shark decides not to be calm and to try and defend itself and get back into the ocean, it can do that. And once again, that's not that shark's fault. It's that guy's fault for pulling that shark up and out of the water and holding it poorly to take a photo of it. Now, sharks need urgent help. So, section 2, what is plastic? So, we're going on to the plastic section now, and I want you to discuss what is plastic made of. Before plastic becomes plastic, what is the main ingredient of plastic? How does plastic become what it is? You can have really soft plastics that you can crush into little balls, like that shopping bag right there. You can have really, really tough plastics, like plastic water bottles that you can't even crush because they're so hard. You have wheelie bins made from plastic. There are so many different types, but they all are made from the same primary ingredient. What is it? What is plastic made of? Once again, I'm going to give you 10 seconds on the screen to shout out to your teacher what you think plastic is made of, and then we're going to have a look. So here's your 10 seconds. Here we go. Fossil fuels. That's the answer. Fossil fuels. Crude oil, to be specific. So you can see it in this picture here. It's a really, really thick, viscous oil that is extracted from the planet, from way deep down into the crust of the earth. But it's the same type of oil that we make tarmac with on our roads or fill up our cars with. The oil is just processed in a different way, and the colour is stripped of the oil to make it suitable to become a plastic. So you can have different coloured dyes added to the plastic then to make the plastic whatever you want it to be. But it starts off as fossil fuels. What's the one thing that they say in when we're talking about climate action and climate change? We need to stop using fossil fuels. And it's so true. So, plastic is complex. Can you name one way that you think plastic can be harmful? And this can be harmful to humans, harmful to the planet, harmful to animals. I just want you to think of that one way in your head. Okay, I'm sure we have lots of them. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to name a good reason that we have plastic. Can you name one reason why humans need plastic? So start having a think about it. What could we possibly need plastic for? There are certain areas in human life where plastic has completely revolutionized that area. And we're not going to get rid of plastic in those areas because we can't. There is no other material that we could substitute yet the plastic for. So I want you to have a little think about it, and I want you to really quickly come up with an answer for both the good and the bad. So I'm going to bring you through some. Let's have a look. So plastic is cheap. So especially for countries that don't have as much wealth as other countries, plastic is a really good alternative for buying. It's durable. As I said, you can have wheelie bins made from plastic. You can carry home liters of milk in these little flimsy plastic bags. It's really strong. Modern medicine. COVID-19, great example. All of the masks that we have to wear, all the PPE that doctors and nurses have to wear, plastic. Protective equipment like hard hats, bulletproof vests, that's all plastic. Making food available globally, so being able to package food up in a way that keeps it fresh so we can send food from South America or Africa all the way up to Ireland. Technology, so phones, computers. I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it wasn't for plastic webcam, plastic screens. Transport, so being able to fly, to take rail, to drive cars, they've all been made better with plastic. And interestingly, plastic was originally made to protect the lives of endangered animals, because we used to use elephant tusk ivory and tortoise shells to kind of make the same products that we're making now out of plastic, but we used to use ivory and tortoise shell to make them instead. So because these animals were going so quickly endangered, because of these trades to try and get the tusks and the shells, scientists got together to try and come up with a new material, and they invented plastic. So it was originally made to protect animals, but now I'm sure that when I asked you to name one of the bad things about animals, one of the bad things about plastic, you probably mentioned, or somebody in your classroom probably thought about the fact that it kills millions of animals per year. So we need plastic, but we don't need single-use plastic. So we don't need your coffee cups that are filled with plastic. We don't need plastic cutlery. We don't need things like plastic Q-tips and things like that. Things that you use once and then throw away, we don't need. We have alternatives for them. So single-use plastics are the enemy here. But I'm going to actually be even more honest with you. Plastic isn't actually the enemy. Oil is the enemy. We need to stop taking out so much oil to make it into plastics. The extraction of those fossil fuels is a huge, huge problem, and that's what's contributing to climate change. Once the plastic is made, yes, it starts to break down, it starts to release harmful toxins, but nothing like the kind of toxins that are released trying to extract that oil from deep down in the earth in the first place. So by stopping to buy so many plastics, we stop the demand for plastics, which in turn stops the demand for oil extraction. So how is plastic directly affecting sharks? There's quite a few ways, surprisingly. Oil spills is a huge one, and it happens on a regular basis. A lot of them don't make it to the main news. Only the really, really big ones make it to the news these days. Toxic pollution from leached chemicals in plastic. So as I said, as plastic breaks down, it becomes into smaller and smaller pieces, and each time those pieces break, they release toxins that were made or that were in that oil when the plastic was made. Entanglement, so plastic fishing nets or plastic bags that are floating in the ocean can entangle animals and ultimately kill them. Strangulation of species as well. This is a plastic bag that has now gotten a lot of barnacles and seashells stuck on it, but this mako shark managed to get itself stuck in that when it was younger, and then it just kept growing and growing, and the bag kept cutting deeper and deeper into the neck of the mako shark. Starvation or suffocation type 1. So starvation or suffocation type 1 is caused by a throat or a stomach blockage where the animals actually eat the plastic, it gets caught in the throat, so they suffocate, or it gets caught in the stomach and they can't digest it. So because they feel hungry, they just stop eating because their stomach is full of plastic, but they can't get rid of it, so they don't feel like they have to eat. So eventually they starve. So suffocation type 2 is called eutrophication, or it's caused by algae blooms. So as the planet gets hotter and hotter, and remember, the planet gets hotter and hotter because we release fossil fuels, so the more oil that we extract, the hotter the planet is going to continue to get. So as the planet heats up, algae love heat. They can grow like nuts when it is hot. So you end up getting these things called algae blooms that can essentially turn entire ocean areas green or red, depending on the algae. But the other thing that algae loves is oxygen. So when you have these algae blooms, the biggest problem is that the algae actually suck all of the oxygen out of the water around them. And fish need oxygen to survive. It's what their gills are looking for. They don't breathe water. They breathe air. They breathe oxygen from the water. So if there's no oxygen in the water, they suffocate. And that's caused by us extracting too many fossil fuels. We're also seeing really unusual migrations of sharks trying to escape warming waters. So they are actively swimming closer to the poles, closer to Ireland as well. We're getting more tropical species of sharks now, going higher and higher up in the oceans. We had a bit of a panic about 3 years ago when somebody realised that a tagged great white shark was making its way from Portugal coast up to Ireland, and the whole country went nuts, even though it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal if we start seeing that trend happening with many different species, because eventually they're going to run out of room to go more north to escape that warming ocean. Eventually the ocean will just heat, and we don't know if sharks are going to be able to survive that pressure. So what can we do? So this is where we're going to leave off this workshop here, and we're going to move over to the final part of this workshop, which is the action piece, where we're going to talk about what actions you can do to start taking pressure off sharks, to care for the ocean, to care for the species within the ocean, and to eliminate your what you assume is your need for plastic. But if you do have any questions, and I would love to hear your actions if you're willing to send them to me, you can contact me at eimear@turntides.org, and I would love to hear anything that you have to say. If you would like to discuss further anything that came up in this topic, you can message me anytime and I'll do my best to get back to you. So thanks so much for participating. I really hope you enjoyed learning about sharks, and I hope you enjoy even further learning about how to protect them more by taking direct action. It is the best way to help save any species. So best of luck with your plastic-free actions, and hopefully I will talk to you soon. Bye!
I hope you enjoyed that session. The action for this session is to try and eliminate as much plastic as you can from your house. The bathroom is an easy place to start. Have a look at this short video that shows you how. Some of these items in this video are available in shops and some you can get online. Shop around. Let us know your thoughts on this session, or put out a call for action on social media and use the hashtags Climate Nature Summit and COP26.
Hi, I'm Sue Adams from Education for Sustainability, and for the last 4 years I've been helping schools and communities all over Ireland go plastic free. Today I'm going to show you how you can rid your home of pointless plastic, and we're going to start in the bathroom, which is actually one of the easiest places to start. One of the easiest things to do is to swap out liquid soap to a bar soap. For brushing your teeth, you can get toothpaste that comes in a glass jar, and for mouthwash you can swap out plastic bottles by also getting mouthwash that comes in a glass jar. This, for example, is 180 tablets, which is the equivalent to 6 months of mouthwash. For brushing your teeth, instead of using a plastic toothbrush, you can use a bamboo toothbrush, which can be disposed of in your compost bin when you're finished. Instead of using roll-on plastic deodorants, you can use refillable tins instead. Shampoo bars are a really easy way to also cut down on pointless plastic. 1 bar of shampoo can actually last 180 washes. In the shower, to use soap again instead of bottles of shower gel, you can get these natural cotton bags. You slip your soap inside, it lathers the soap for you, and it's much better than buying those endless bottles of plastic in your home. And the last item on the list is plasters. Many people dispose of plasters either down the toilet or down the sink. This is a big problem for wildlife because plasters are made from plastic and they don't biodegrade and they don't break down. Instead, you can buy bamboo plasters, but they're biodegradable, not compostable, so please dispose of them in the bin and not down the toilet. So these are just some of the ways that you can rid plastic from your bathroom, but don't just stop there. Move around the various rooms in your house and look at other ways that you can avoid pointless plastic in your home.